I think the best approach for me has been networking.
Okay.
Going to the apartment association trade shows and actually putting yourself out there and talking about the services that you provide, and really getting involved in the apartment association. That's for me been the best approach.
All right, welcome back to episode number 19. How
Thank you for
amazing is
having me
that?
again.
Yeah, thank you, Aisha, for joining. Welcome to Multifamily of the Cuff. I have here with us today Aisha Price. Thank you for accepting the invitation again.
You're welcome.
That one first interview went amazing. And the reason why I thought about you to bring you again is because of the amount of knowledge that you do have.
Thank you.
I'm pretty certain that a lot of our audience, can gain a lot of knowledge from you for all the stuff that you already done in the industry. So briefly, for some of those that have not listened to the first one that we did, would you like sharing with us a little bit of your background?
So I've been in property management for 20 plus years. I was a regional manager with the prior company, but I have HUD, tax credit, and conventional knowledge.
Okay.
And so for me, my love is tax credit and HUD, just because of the paperwork and the amount of constant changes. So it's always challenging you.
Okay.
But for me, I've been a leasing agent. I've done property manager, assistant manager, area manager, district manager, and then regional manager.
So any
continue
position that's
growth.
available out there, you have done them all.
Yes.
Maintenance?
Yes. I've learned maintenance
Okay.
a lot. My guys taught me a lot, and
Okay.
just taking me and painting apartments, or how to change an AC unit, or how to replace a toilet, or how to change a thermostat. So I've learned a lot from my team.
Awesome. Now, you mentioned just now tax credit. Um, for the audience right now, we have service providers or leasing agents. They might not know exactly what that means when it comes to the industry. Can you elaborate a little bit more on in that?
So you have low income housing tax credit program. What it is a the best way I can describe this is where you have to meet a minimum and maximum standard. The maximum standard is based off the actual guidelines that is provided by the housing department in Florida.
Okay.
And every state has their own housing department. Every state has their maximum guidelines that is based on the medium income that they have with their database. The minimum is set by the company or organization, or management company, and
Okay.
that can be anywhere from 1.5% of the monthly rent or 2.5 of the monthly rent. And as long as you fall within those guidelines and you meet that minimum and maximum income, then you can qualify to live in an apartment home.
Okay.
If you exceed the maximum income, then you can get disqualified, or they could ask you to move out if for any reason they found that you were not reporting income when you first moved in. So it can be a little bit of complications, but honestly, it's a very simple math.
But let me see if I understand it. So now, who pays the difference?
There's no one pays the difference, as far as the rent you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So no one pays the difference. You pay the max rent based on the market that they provide from the housing authority.
Okay, so but that's always going to be lower to conventional.
Correct.
Okay, so what I mean is like because I have wrote down we were going through numbers, and if you see on the board it says loss to lease, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a word that is done in the multifamily for taking in consideration, and correct me if I'm wrong. So if a property A and property B, they have they're renting an apartment, they just go off with a 3-2 for $3,500. But then the market have shifted, and now they can actually rent it for 3,800. So that's what there is a loss to lease right now for about $300 different, right? So now they're looking to see how they're going to notify the residents to, drive that rent up to match what the market price is. So, but now in the tax credit, it's not going to be 3,800, so it's going to be on the lower end. So a landlord for that property is renting this unit at $1,200. So what I mean is, who paid the difference from 1,200 to 3,800 for that? What they should have, if they didn't choose to go into the tax credit, how is that landlord making money? Is the government subsidizing that part of it, or
So
how does that
remember, they
work?
get a FHA loan, or they can get different types of government subsidized loans.
Okay.
And so based on the loan that they get basically a tax credit at the end of the year when they file their taxes. So your difference on that portion that you're talking about is can be offset at the end of the year when they do their taxes, as long as they comply every single unit every single year. And that mortgage can go from 15 years to 30 years, or it can be extended if the company or management company wants to. But when you're looking at a conventional site, you have to separate it from that tax credit type community or low income housing community, just because of the types of programs and funding that they receive
Okay.
on their property.
So everything goes off from the funding that they use to either purchase that, because it can be converted from a conventional, and then the new owner comes in, they can actually convert that whole property into a tax credit
They
site.
can, but it takes time to do
Because
that because they have to get approved through, yes, the Florida Housing Department. They also have to get the proper funding in order to get those tax credits. And then they have to make sure that they follow the guidelines when they first occupy the property based on that type of funding.
oh wow, that's amazing. That's very interesting. So, and that is something that you have focus on your experience. Is that what you? So you have done more of those than conventional.
I've done more of those, yes,
Oh,
than
perfect.
conventional.
Okay, awesome. So that's something that is I have always been interested to learn more. Um, we don't do those often. We don't service those as much. Again, budget differences. So now, so that's a great question, because now, if we look at our audience that are looking into start providing services to apartments, and they need to understand where they're gonna fall into. I usually, when I teach a class, I call it Apartment 101, and I break down into the three different properties that are out there, right? We're looking at garden styles, then we got at the mid rise, and then we have the high rises. But I never talk to them about different type of properties, whether it's um, just conventional and then the tax credit ones. But when it comes to budget, now that you've been in both sides, you've been in both sides, right? So what's the difference between budgets? Is
So,
one more limited than the other?
so on a, and the best way I can say this is on a LIHTC community, um, and the conventional property, you have a little bit more leadway with conventional properties. You do have on the LIHTC communities, tax credit communities, where you have to answer to the asset managers, or you have to answer to the bank, you have to answer to the loan department, the company that you got your funding from, whether it be a FHA loan or it could be a mortgage that you received. You have to make sure that you submit every single thing that you do on a community to those organizations, and they review them every single year, just like your financial review.
Gotcha.
Where with a conventional community, they have a little bit more leadway. The owners can, again, like you said, the rents are going to be based off the market itself. And so with that additional rent, they have a little bit more funding to be able to add into their budget. Owners can add additional income as well. So that you do have your limitations. So you do have a maximum that you cannot exceed
Okay.
with, you know, tax credit community or low income housing, where with the conventional, you have a little bit more leadway. You can, raise the prices a little bit on something, or you can get, let's say, for example, they have garages. You can charge for garages. You can charge for washer and dryers. You can charge, and there's no requesting to get that approved
On the conventional
on the
side.
conventional
Okay.
side. But when you go to tax credit community, you have to get permission to be able to charge the additional services
Okay.
because you have a limit of what you can charge.
Wow. Okay. So now, for anybody that's trying to provide services to the multifamily, please keep that in consideration, especially when you are charging and sending invoices. So there are gonna be limits on the way of things getting approved.
Correct.
So some of them have an allowance to 500,
Mm-hmm.
1,000, and then 5,000 and so forth and so on. And then if it goes to after X amount of money, then it's going to the cap funds or,
CapEx.
yeah, CapEx, so that's different. That's a whole different group of people that are going to be involved to approve those type of quotes. So make sure that you understand that, for the most part, I think 500 to 1,000 is what is allowed into appropriate manager level.
Correct.
And then
Correct.
after that is that where the regional get involved. And
Correct.
then I think after 5,000 or so, so on, probably the BP and then some other people start getting involved.
Correct.
So there's a more of a delay to get approvals or even getting pay at
Yes.
times whenever, things that out of the blue has to get done. And then you hit them with a $5,000 bill. And then, there goes 4 months waiting for payment.
Exactly.
So one of the things that I tell anybody that wants to get into involved with the multifamily is that they have to make sure that they can sustain themselves for X amount of time.
Exactly.
To especially small business owners that might run into cash flow situations. You have money out there, so that's something that is great. It's a great business to get into. It's a lot of volume of stuff happening, but make sure that anybody can sustain their their companies, as they wait for payment.
At
But
least
that's
for
great.
30 days. And so with the approval process, what happens is, like you said, the property manager can have a level anywhere from 500 to 1,000. But they also have to keep in mind that they have to stay within their budget.
Correct.
So once they start going over their budget, they have to explain why. Why did they go over their budget? Maybe they had a leak that happened that wasn't planned for, or natural disaster, again, something that's not planned for. So those things we have to take into consideration. But you always want to make sure that the property manager understands that they do have a guideline and a budget that they have to meet on a monthly basis.
Now that you mentioned the budget, um, budget started being worked on July, August. Start, they're preparing, put it all together, and then it goes through different reviews.
Correct.
As a rule of thumb, when does that actually settle? Is it November, December
Um,
type? Like that's when it actually settles to where it can get approved for the following year.
so normally around November, December, like with the previous organization I was with, they did their final rounds with the president of the company in December
Okay.
so that it can be rolled out in January.
Okay.
Normally, and depends also on the company, because some companies do it year round, where they go and they address, and they look and see what needs to be addressed for the following year. So then some companies started in, like you said, June or July. Our organization started ours in October, so we had a month to complete all our budgets for all our sites, and it's spread out throughout the month, so it's
Okay.
not just all at one time.
Okay, perfect. So also that's another good information to know for anybody that wants to get into the multifamily. It's great to start providing your prices, in the middle of the year. Jumping into or for some of the properties is extremely hard to make changes at the beginning of the year, especially if there is a price difference because of what they already have on the budget. So
And what they want to keep in mind too is when they're giving those prices in mid-year, that they plan for the future.
correct.
What we tend to forget, and what I've seen happen, is that they'll give us a price, let's say $1,000 for paint,
Hmm.
and beginning year comes in, and now you're like, oh no, it's going to cost you 1,500. They don't forecast the future, so it's always try to make sure that you forecast the future. And most organizations will give you a proposal for 90 days, so you want to get it updated every 90 days, so that way you at least have something that's current.
Okay, well, see, great point. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Aisha, I have shared with you a few questions. I know we went off topic, and
It's okay.
I got you off guard, but and nothing that you already that you don't know about. On these questions, I have interviewed some business owners that were anxious about knowing into the apartments, and I adopted some of those questions. There's one that says, let's talk about decision making for services in the multifamily industry. A lot of business owners out there that are not quite familiar with the multifamily, they show up and they have zero idea when it comes to who is the person making the decision. And I always express to them that it depends. It depends on what it is that you're trying to provide. If you're trying to provide a software that's going to change the entire management company, going into a property is not going to help you.
No.
You have to go to a property management, trying to talk to maybe IT, probably, or somebody that is going to understand why changing the software for the entire organization is going to make it, it's going to make sense. If you're going to provide insurance for the entire portfolio, maybe the property manager or the maintenance supervisor is not going to be your point of contact. So trying to understand. So if you want to just elaborate a little bit onto different position, who makes decision on what level, that will be great for the supplier partners.
So the property manager can actually make decisions on as far as vendors that they're going to use for paint, who they're going to use for cleaning, who they're going to use for any contract, like contract work, or construction. Landscaper. Well, no, every company is different on that aspect.
Okay.
A landscaper can sometimes be made by the property manager, or it has to go through the actual department of maintenance.
Okay.
So that just depends on the organization that you're working with. But your basic contract work, cleaning, painting, punching a unit, if you have vendors that punch your units, or if you have, construction work that needs to be done, like sidewalk grinding or minor work like light replacements that you can't reach.
Elevator. What about elevators? Pressure washing.
Pressure washing they can do as well.
Pavement. Like, what about the pavement of the parking lot? No,
that's something coming from upper management. Okay. Elevators also going to be coming from upper management because they want to make sure that the company that they're utilizing uses the proper specs. They have the proper scope of work. They have the proper insurances. So that's something completely that the property manager cannot.
Fire systems.
Nope. That's going to be also on upper management level.
Upper management level, yes. Also interesting.
Yes.
So open gates. Just trying to think about everything that goes on, and so anyone can relate. So, I mean, we have the gate. What about plumbing?
The plumbing can be done on site too. Gates depends on the work. Okay. So if it's a small repair, then yes, the property manager can do it. If it's a major repair, then that has to be made through upper management as well.
Pest control.
99% of the time, the management company makes that decision.
Okay.
Because they work out a deal with the actual pest control company. There are some times where you'll find that they're unhappy and they can make a change, but only for that specific property.
Okay.
Depending on who the worker is or the technician is. So you may see, where, let's say, for example, Massey has a whole realm of communities and they may not have one because, the property manager was not in, satisfied with the work that they had.
And that's when Terminex comes in.
Correct. Terminex or anything else for that matter.
Just the only one that can pop in my mind. I'm not just giving here free advertisement because I don't know them.
And no, it's not even free advertisement, but it's just the main companies that are normally out there. But then you think about, like you said, the plumbing. Again, it's going to be based on what the project is.
Okay.
If it's sprinkler repair, it has to go through the fire sprinkler system company. If it's backflow, then it has to be done through the fire sprinkler company. It can't be just done with a plumbing company. So there's different aspects of the job that a property manager can actually approve on site as long as it does not exceed or is going to change how the company functions. Let's put it that way.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good analogy. So that way they can understand whoever is trying to provide a service to the multifamily, now we're going to try to guide them to see who they need to talk to. Exactly. What about maintenance? Are maintenance allowed, or that also depends on the management to the allowance that they have to make a decision to bring a vendor?
Normally, no. Okay. You don't really see a lot of maintenance guys really say, hey, I want this vendor to come in.
Okay.
Unless they've built a relationship with them in previous companies.
Gotcha.
Then that's when you'll see, like, hey, they'll come to the property manager or regional manager. Hey, I've worked with this person. They've been great. We would like to bring them in. Can you sit down and talk to them? And they'll either have the property manager or regional manager meet with them. And then from that point forward, they can then request for them to come in.
So then ultimately the property manager will be the one making the decision.
Correct.
Okay, so anybody that have no idea, they never done business with a multifamily, if you are providing staffing. What about staffing? I know that's something that I have had the chance to meet a lot of people that work for staffing companies, and then a lot of talent have come out of these type of companies. A lot of people start their career in the multifamily from those companies.
Yes.
So who makes the decision when it's time to decide to bring a leasing agent through a staffing agency?
So property managers also have that
Also,
authority.
okay,
Now, if there's no property manager on site, then it'll be the next step. It'll be the regional manager.
okay,
With the staffing agencies, which I love them, I actually have a great partnership with someone in Gainesville,
okay,
and they've been amazing. And what I find is that they always are looking for the right talent based on your needs. So it's once that person is found, and like you said, they actually build their career or get into the industry because of the staffing agencies. So a lot of people who get hired is because of the property manager or the assistant manager that's on site or the regional that's dealt with them, on a day-to-day basis. So it's
yeah.
amazing to see that.
I know, and that's why I brought it up because I just tried to go over and asking the question because of that reason. Because I had the chance to network with companies that does staffing or plumbers or AC or anything like that.
Exactly.
So that's beautiful. Um, what about, let's go on next question. So, what have been the best approach that have worked for you? Um, and you can share with us different experience when you were on site as a property manager or regional. What do you think has been a best approach? Um, Business owner keep asking me, so how do I get in contact? How is the best approach to reach out to them? My first reaction is please don't ever go there on the first of the month unannounced, without a proper appointment, or on a Monday at 9 a.m. because they're gonna hate you.
Exactly.
So, but what have worked for you that you said, well, I really appreciate this approach?
Um, Honestly, I think the best approach for me has been networking.
Okay.
Going to the apartment association trade shows and actually putting yourself out there and talking about the services that you provide, and really getting involved in the apartment association. That's for me been the best approach. What I find difficult is when, or even when vendors, actually refer you to someone. Like I'm like, okay, that's great. I can actually work with this person because they gave me a vendor gave me a positive review on them, and I can move forward with them.
That's perfect.
Like we discussed before, one of the things that I find where it's hard to deal with the vendor or getting someone in through the doors where they're consistently calling you or consistently emailing you, and you're just like, okay, I can't do this anymore because you're feeling like you're being attacked at that point.
Okay.
Just a nice hi, how you doing today? Let's have lunch, or can I meet you at a community, or let me show you what I can do. I've had a lot of vendors do that too, where they do one time free service to show what they can do. Is probably the best for most companies,
Okay.
because they don't want to be badgered. It's like sitting there and you're getting a marketing call every 5 minutes, and you're like, okay, at this point you need to leave me alone. Just leave me alone. But honestly, just be very warm, very forthcoming about what you do. If you can provide the service for one time free to show them what you can do, then do so. So that way you can
Put your foot in the door.
let yourself be known. And then from there, really be part of the community, be part of the apartment associations, in all honesty, because that's where you're going to get known. I mean,
So-
and you and I met through that too.
Right.
But
Perfect that you said that because the episode 18 was about the association and the importance of it. So now that you're bringing this topic, and you're bringing it up, it kind of attaches to the previous episode. It is super important about to join the association. I cannot say that enough. But then what you just said, and this is gonna be a message for some companies out there that keep harassing also their sales reps and pushing them out there that they need to follow up. They need to constantly, they have these outrageous quota that they have to meet. I have heard people that have to visit 15 properties a day, and they need to call 30 people. So there's only X amount of properties in the Tampa Bay. The rotation is gonna be often. So that's why you're gonna get, call every so often, you know, from the same people, the same company. You feel that you're being harassed, but in the same time, those organizations, they're not understand your point of view. So this is the amazing thing that I'm trying to bring to the table is your experience. So if you want to share just briefly, I can see reports. Just the day of a regional, just briefly, it's just fill up with report, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a regional under rule of thumb is about 8 property managers, right?
Right.
So you have 8 properties that you have to take care of,
Oversee. Exactly.
oversee, and then you have all the reports. You have to, report to the VP, and then you have all these numbers, and then on top of that, you're being harassed from all these vendors that want your business. So you have to create some time also to spend with them, along with network events, and then also all the meetings that you have to host, and then babysit all your property managers.
And actually inspect your properties too. So we have to inspect our communities. We have to look at our reports. We have to, like you said, report to our VPs or even the owners. Sometimes we deal with owners on top of that. So when you have the consistent emails or consistent calls coming in, it can interrupt your day. And you get to the point sometimes where you're just like, I'm done. I'm going to put you to the junk mail now at this point, just because you don't want to see it anymore. Again, having a nice, clear, here's what I do, here's who I am. If you revisit with me every 6 months, I'm good with that. Or if I see what you can do, great. Don't just, like you said, walk into a community and think that that person can make that decision for them or for the organization to hire you on board, unless it's something like we said, painting, cleaning, carpet, sometimes carpet, not always.
Floors. The
Floors,
floor is also
floors is different.
floor from different. So
Every management company is different.
So I see people ask me all the time, why don't you get into floor? Because it's already dominated by a few companies, and they have national accounts,
Yes.
and it's a whole different beast that I don't want part of. I have zero desire to get into flooring.
It's
Zero.
a completely different beast. But even like resurfacing is another thing a property manager can do. But when you start going into the bigger items, like you said, like roofing repairs or major plumbing, or even let's just talk about lift stations or elevators, that's when you really need to be mindful of who you talk to or who you approach and how many times you approach them.
Right.
Because at that point, if you approach them too much and they keep saying no to you, and that will reach out to you, trust and believe at one point they're going to need you. But if you continuously, go and email them or call them, and it becomes a point where you don't want to do
Junk.
business with them anymore.
Awesome. Let's go into, let's see. So what is the most needed in the multifamily right now, in your opinion? So a service that's needed right now.
Um, Honestly, and I would say this in general, I mean, it's not even really a service because there's so many services that are out there. It's more the training of maintenance techs and
Okay.
maintenance teams. And there has not been really an organization or school that provides that training to become a maintenance tech. You learn hands-on. And what I find hard is that there's no one out there really promoting what the industry can do for you. There, you don't see it in the schools, you don't see it in universities, you don't see it anywhere. And I think that we've lost touch with that type of aspect of any management company. We really need to start getting back into going into high schools and talking about opportunities and teaching them, where you used to have tech school in high school and they don't do that. It's very limited. Having a vocational school that teaches maintenance and can get the teams out there to know how to do the job, and then also have the opportunity to become part of the organization and somebody actually mentoring them. So that I think we're missing, and that's a big part that we're missing.
And let me ask you, do you think that's because the way that we're going towards to right now, that everything want to be subbed out, and everything is more specific into having a person, let's just say a jack of all trades, because you need to, as a maintenance, you need to know a little bit more of this and that. And then what I've seen is that, like you just mentioned, is fading out, that you don't see that as much. But now properties are hiring stuff out more than before.
Correct.
So now you have company that does the punch and or the painting and then the cleaning and the floor and everything else. So limiting now to where you need a technician just to mess with. Now going into a properties, you have the Wi-Fi or the auto locks, that are digital. Everything is through an app. So all this stuff that are getting more sophisticated in a sense.
Correct.
So limiting the access from the maintenance to get involved into that, because now if they touch them, then the warranty is off. So that, I believe, that is what's pushing the maintenance away from what is for what they can do. Also, the pay is another part.
Yes.
So they're choosing to work at on the vendor side for zero point 0.1 times more money per hour they do in the multifamily. And again, that goes back into what I was talking before, into the rent, that rents are high, property management is still beating on the services, beating it down on price. They create a greater gap into in the being more profitable, because this is a window that right now that they're taking advantage of, because most likely we're going to see rent start dropping in the next couple of years. So then they're trying to maximize that. But they don't want to push into paying more for service, because that's going to be harder to then bring down.
Exactly.
So I understand that part of it. But I believe that some of the overwork with a late pay, with a very,
Very low pay.
very, very low pay. And that is going to be hard to bring people to
Yes.
want to join the maintenance side.
Yes.
So as a whole, I think that there is also another problem that needs to be addressed in order to attract that talent that
Exactly.
want to make a living just being in maintenance when it comes to that. I know Orlando at Valencia Community College, I think they provide some community, but I think it's more for property management more so than it is for maintenance.
Correct.
Okay, but I haven't seen or haven't heard from any association, aside from some trainings that they do at the local association. Not all of them do it, but I know some of them, they do provide classes for certifications and everything else. What's it called? Certified Apartment Maintenance, that they
Your
can.
CAMT.
The CAMT.
The CAMT.
Ah.
And it's different. And trust me, like I said, I love the Apartment Association. They all have different values that they bring in, from north to east to south to west. Uh, but it's different when you, even as a vendor, it takes you years to learn your trade and understand what you do and how you can perfect it. And it's the same thing for maintenance. It's not a one-time class. It's something that is ongoing consistently. And having that hands-on, because a lot of the times we think it's just books. Like, oh, I can give you a textbook and you can learn it.
Yeah, right.
I can tell you maintenance guys hate reading. But they love to be hands-on. They want to touch, they want to feel, they want to see. And it takes time to do that. You have to have that passion and be like, okay, I'm going to teach someone how to do this by doing X, Y, and Z. It's no longer just paper. And that's where I think we're missing that connection. Even with vendors, I mean, the same thing,
Believe me, we're running into the
Yes.
same problem too, trying to hire the talent, the people, and then it's just the consistent of it. And eventually they get it. And then when they get it, off they go to another, either they open their own or they go to another company. So for us, it's a constant teaching. It's a constant recruiting. So, and I believe it happens right now, especially between 2023, 2022, it was hard for everybody when it comes to holding maintenance or staffing as a whole, and it goes across the board for every trade. But what I saw, it was um, shortage of maintenance across the board. So
Yes.
I think I have a last question here. Um, what is the most important to a property manager when dealing with a contractor?
Transparency.
Beautiful.
Transparency.
Okay.
Be honest. If you can't do something, don't say you can do it.
Okay.
If you have a referral that can do the job, give that referral. I would rather have that transparency and know that I can trust you to do the work that you can do, and then know that I can rely on someone else if you can't do it. If you mess up,
Own it.
own it.
Mm-hmm.
Own it. Just, hey, I'm sorry. I'll come back. I'll fix it. And I know that's been one of the biggest things with you is that I loved about working with you is, my maintenance guys would be like, oh, they didn't do this, but I called them. They were back out the next day, and we don't get that a lot in this industry. Sometimes it's just like, oh, I didn't do that. Well, it wasn't there before.
Mm-hmm.
We're letting you know. Just come back and please just fix it. That's all I'm asking you to do.
That's it.
Transparency and ownership.
One of the things that we run here is keeping the negativity words out. And people say, how can you speak without saying all these negative words like won't, wouldn't, couldn't, wasn't, I'm sorry, my apologies. And it takes practice to say something. So a property manager will be so angry. No one show up here on my property. They're supposed to be here at 9 and it is 10:37 and no one is here. So most company will be like, Aisha, I'm so sorry. I apologize for this. That I promise you that will never happen again. Look and listen to all the negativity I'm saying to you. And I'm 5 seconds into the conversation and I still haven't given you a solution, right? So someone calls and is angry. And my response is like, Aisha, thank you for bringing that to my attention. As I'm speaking with you, I'm dispatching a person that's heading to your property right now. So as soon as you get there, I'll let you know and we'll fix it.
Exactly.
Bam. Oh my God, thank you, Fernando. See how I flip it. So instead of putting negativity already into your brain, you're going to respond already also negative as well. But yet you haven't said anything about how you're going to fix it, right? Because I'm just telling you a bunch of nonsense. So let's go ahead and just immediately just tell you and own it and give that person that solution right off the bat, right now. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. My team is already on the way to fix it. Boom.
Exactly.
That's it.
It's funny because we were inspecting an apartment, and the property manager had stated to us that it was a vendor that we normally deal with. And so I called the vendor. I'm like, hey, I'm here. I see these couple issues. I need you to come back out and address it for me. And they were like, Aisha, we never even went to that apartment. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, we never even touched that apartment. But don't worry. I got you. I'll be there today. I mean, that to me meant more than anything because even though they didn't address that apartment, they never painted, they never cleaned that apartment, they still took the effort to come out and address the concerns that we had.
I'm sure because they saw the urgency of what you were going through. And at times, just like any organization might have some issues, the property management, and I'm going to say it, at times, this is how we see. There's a lot of chaos going on. The chaos come to us. We kind of prepare it and then we deliver. So we have been called, hey, I want you guys to do this because it wasn't done right. And we look, I don't know if you called the right company, but that wasn't us. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yeah, you're right. So it happens. So, but that was a great approach of the company to go ahead and take it. And so I'm sure they saw the urgency and then went ahead and help you guys out. That's amazing. And those are the things that's a good practice. That's a good business practice to do. Don't start arguing. Don't take it personal. Go fix it, and then you figure it out later on if you have to get paid or not.
Exactly.
So that's awesome. Asha, thank you so much. I think that for all the questions that I had, I'm pretty certain that the audience are going to appreciate all this information. I have received picture, then seeing and viewing these podcasts on YouTube and taking notes about it. So that's beautiful. People from Texas,
Oh,
I see people
wow.
from Arizona, New York, California. There's a lot of groups that on Facebook that are from painting, cleaning, maintenance throughout, and I have shared some of these videos on those platforms, and they love it. So I'm super happy to see that all these information that we're giving, we don't monetize out of this. I just noticed that there was a gap that needs to be filled.
Sure.
And whether at times we focus on property management, today we focus on service providers, and then they just taking notes. And so if we can help right now your time, you're volunteering for this, so just like me, and volunteering to help others. And that's what's the beautiful thing about this podcast. It's just to help other people. And I like to see other people succeed. And that's what the
Yeah.
goal of this podcast is. So thank you for being part of it.
You're welcome. Thank
All
you
right,
for having
guys.
me.
Guys, if you wanna check out these podcasts, it's gonna be on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube next week. So make sure that you tune in. It is filled with tons of information, and stay tuned for the next one coming up. Thank you so much.